Can you think of a place where who you were and what you had was enough? Where you didn't need to think about being your best version of yourself. You could just show up? I have this childhood memory of driving to my grandparents' house with my family and being about a mile away when we pulled over to the side of the road. And this was a ritual where my mom would freshen me and my sister's hair. She would make sure no stains were on our clothes. She would wipe off our faces with handy wipes from the cylinder that was in the middle of the car and always smelled funny and left my skin sticky. It's a real strong memory, and I didn't think much of it at the time. I understood that visiting my grandparents mattered, but I also knew that my grandparents didn't actually care what I looked like, what I wore, or how I arrived, because this was one place where who I was, what I was, it was always enough. I was always delighted in, listened to, and nothing extra was needed. So even though I was happy to wear the right thing and have the bow fixed and clean off the dirt, there was something in me that knew I did not need to be polished up to be loved by them. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood where none of us had the name brand clothes, but we didn't really care. We knew our fun and creativity and laughter were a stronger currency than anything we could have bought or worn for status. And we had a lovely home, but I was overheard talking to the house painter once, telling him that when I grew up, I was going to live in an old house with a lot of cats. Where did that girl go? Maybe she got lost the first time she showed up to a college party looking like she was from the small town instead of the big city. And that was the year she asked for a name brand watch for Christmas, because that was a status symbol that could be worn every day, a small indicator of belonging to a certain group, a certain class. But things really took off when I got married and moved to a whole new area near my in-laws in a far more cosmopolitan scene. The watch really wasn't enough anymore. The wrong shoes, handbag, coat, any misstep, any wrong choice of color, brand, or style was enough for a look that sized me up and found me wanting. I remember a cousin and her family coming to visit over the Easter holiday, and I so wanted to get everything right. I'd planned it all out in advance, and I was basically trying to present a house where it looked like no one lived there. It was picture perfect, when there were actually 6 children, 2 adults, and a dog. I was able to create this illusion of beauty and order on the first floor. But upstairs, everything was chaos. And the last place I wanted them to see was my middle son's bedroom. Because bit by bit, day by day, he had covered every space on the wall and the ceiling with football cards, artwork, pictures, and awards. And it just wasn't the sort of room a designer would ever allow. No window treatment would match. Bedding would look like too much. And it didn't fit with this curated image I was trying to project. And toward the ends of the visit, it looked like I was going to pull off this illusion of having the perfect home. The finish line was in sight. The adults were having a cocktail in the living room while the kids played somewhere. Well, that summer was actually outside in the mud puddles. And this was not a part of my plan. They tripped into the house, dripping mud all over the carpet, and there was no question that they were going to need to go upstairs to take a shower. So I jumped up and I insisted I could take care of everything. Nobody needed to go upstairs with me. And I took them up, I put them into the shower, and then I was looking for clothes that their kids could borrow, which was a problem because we had already worn all our good clothes, keeping up appearances in the previous days. And everything left looked really like it needed to head to Goodwill. And these were kids who were used to the finest. So as I was rooting through the closet, trying to just find the best options available, I heard these steps coming closer. And before I could stop her, there was my cousin standing in the middle of the mess. And she looked in the bathroom, noticed the water stain on the ceiling, the shower curtain that needed replacing, the tiny space which 4 of us were sharing. And eyes wide, she stepped out and looked at my laundry area. This was right outside my bedroom, and it was basically a washer and a dryer and a closet. And as she took in every detail, she looked at me and she said, "I do not know how you live like this." And I knew this would be the image that she remembered. I had tried, but it wasn't enough. And you can tell me that it doesn't matter. That the girl who didn't see the point of getting fixed up for her grandparents was the one who had it right. But I would argue that it does matter if you care what people think. It matters if you notice it when someone looks you up and down and then looks away without changing expression. It matters if you're one of those people who gets a pit in their stomach when you walk into a room and realize that you got it wrong and that everyone else in the room got the memo and wore the right things. Materialism. the desire for just the right clothes or home decor item. It had me in its grip for decades. And these external things can feel like they're an extension of who I am, somehow connected to my worth. And I know this isn't the right answer. But the feelings of inadequacy well up in me, even when all in my self-talk says that it's what's on the inside that counts. But I miss that little boy's bedroom. It got dismantled years ago, and I would give anything to sit in it today, to look at the pictures he had drawn, to see the baseball cards that mattered to him, to see the things that he thought were worthy of wall space, because they represented a life lived to the fullest. Creativity, fun. We actually had what the Instagram ads are trying to sell: rest, laughter, and all those other things, all that other stuff. It wasn't needed. All that was needed was the contentment that could see what we already had.